Your support matters, with 90% of our viewers yet to subscribe. We need your help to keep creating engaging content. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know where you're watching from. Leave your city in the comments below. I used to believe that stability was the cornerstone of love, not the flowers, not the dramatic gestures or long walks on the beach, but the quiet things showing up, being there, consistency. My husband Liam was all of those things, steady, soft-spoken, a man who didn't shake even when life did. He worked as an accountant, meticulous, reliable, the kind of man everyone leaned on because he didn't lean on anyone. And for the first few years, I thought that was enough. We had a small but lovely home in a peaceful neighborhood. No white picket fence, but close Liam. And I didn't come from wealth or legacy, just two people who fell in love and decided to build something together. I used to work in marketing, and I was pretty good at it. But after we got married, I told him he wanted to take a break, maybe a few months to reset and figure out what was next. He didn't question it. He made enough to keep us afloat, and he liked supporting me, said it made him feel proud. For a while, I believed I'd go back to client meetings and campaign briefs. But months turned into years, and I got used to the rhythm of quiet mornings, gym workouts, lunches with the girls, and Liam never pushed. He just kept working, kept providing, kept being the same calm, predictable man. I married, but something in me started to shift. I didn't notice it at first. It was like waking up in a room where the walls had moved overnight, subtle just enough to throw you off balance. I found myself scrolling on my phone more often, barely hearing him when he talked about his day. I started going to the gym, more partly for my sanity, partly because I needed something that felt like mine again, something that had nothing to do with being a wife. And then there was Randy Hughes, a trainer at the gym, confident, funny, always with this half smile, like he knew something you didn't. The kind of man who made eye contact, like it was a game. At first, it was harmless, flirty banter between sets, an extra minute or two, helping me stretch. But somewhere along the line, I stopped thinking of it as harmless, and I started looking forward to him. He started texting, I started replying, and soon we weren't just talking about fitness plans anymore. I don't think I meant for it to go where it went, but when you're starved of something, attention, passion, that feeling of being seen, you find yourself justifying things you never thought you'd consider. The first time we kissed, I didn't feel guilt, just heat. And when it escalated, when it became physical, it was like something inside me snapped loose. A version of me I didn't recognize had taken the wheel. I kept telling myself it wasn't going to last, that it was a phase, an escape hatch from the life that had started to feel like our spreadsheet. Neat rows, balanced columns, but no spark. But Randy made me feel electric, like I mattered. And I wasn't ready to let that go. The problem with secrets is they rarely stay buried. And the more lies I told, the more times I said I was going out with Cass and Mariah or stayed an extra hour at the gym, the more Liam began to notice. He wasn't loud about it. He never accused or raised his voice. Just little questions, side glances, that quiet disappointment that somehow cut deeper than any fight would have. One night, I remember we were sitting on the couch. The TV was on some documentary. I wasn't really watching, and I was texting Randy beneath a pillow. It thought I was being slick, but Liam turned to me with this softness in his voice and said, "You okay? You've seemed kind of far away lately." I gave him their smile, the one I'd practiced, tired, sweet. "Just a lot on my mind," I told him. "Anything you want to talk about?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew if I did, the whole thing would unravel. Not everything needs to be a deep talk. I said I'm allowed to have an off day. He didn't push. He just nodded and looked back at the TV, but I could feel the air shift between us, like we were sitting side by side on opposite ends of a canyon. Then came the night that cracked everything open. I'd just gotten out of the shower towel, wrapped around me, humming some song stuck in my head. And there he was, standing in the middle of the kitchen, holding my phone like it had sprouted teeth. He didn't shout, didn't throw it, just lifted his eyes and said, "You want to explain this?" I froze. My gaze flicked to the screen. The last message from Randy Stillipin. "Can't wait to feel you again. Tomorrow, babe." There was no coming back from that. Oh my God. "Liam, it's not what you think." I blurted too fast. He didn't flinch, just started scrolling through the messages calmly, methodically, reading out every word like it was evidence in a courtroom. Still thinking about that night in the shower. That picture made my whole day. With each sentence, I felt my defenses shrink, until all I had left was the truth, ugly, raw, and exposed. "I want a divorce," I said. Just like that, no crying, no begging, just clarity. Like something had snapped into focus. "I've been unhappy for a long time. Liam, I didn't want to hurt you, but I fell for Randy, and I'm not going to lie about it. I'm leaving." He looked at me like I was someone he'd never met. I turned and walked toward the bedroom towel, still damp around me, and said, "We need to talk about splitting everything, the house, the savings. I want half." There was a silence behind me, like he couldn't decide if I was serious or just delusional. "You want half?" he asked. Finally, I gave up my career to support. "Yours," I said, pulling on leggings like we were just having a conversation about dinner plans. "I kept the house running. Immediate sacrifices, Liam. That has value." He didn't argue, just stared at me, number like he was trying to calculate the cost of what had just happened. "I never asked you to give anything up," he said slowly. "You wanted the break, doesn't change the facts," I said. "We built this together." He nodded like he was still catching up, like he was watching the woman he married disappear in front of him and didn't know whether to mourn or rage. But then he said something that threw me off completely. "Okay," he said. "If you want a divorce, fine. I'm not going to fight you on it." I blinked. "Wait, seriously? You think you'll be happier with Randy? Go. You can have half of what I've got." And just like that, the power dynamic shifted. I'd expected shouting blame, maybe even tears. But Liam, he just stood there, steady as ever. Like none of this had touched him. And for a second, I felt this odd flicker of confusion. Like I couldn't read the angle he was playing. "Good," I said. "Glad you're being mature about this." He smiled just barely. "Mature," he echoed, and I swear something about that smile. It wasn't sad. It wasn't bitter. It was knowing. He poured himself a glass of water, then said, "We'll go through it together. Mediation's probably the best route, less messy." "Agreed," I said, pulling out my phone to start looking up attorneys. I already had someone in mind, a sleek, confident woman, downtown with a killer reputation. She'd helped me get what I deserved. What I didn't realize, what I had no clue about, was that Liam had already played this game quietly, long before I ever stepped foot in that gym. Because Liam didn't keep things in his name, and I was about to find out just how calm a storm could be before it drowned you. Page after page, slowly realizing what wasn't there. The house not in my name, the investment accounts, protected by the family trust, the savings, technically part of a managed portfolio, under my father's name, even the car we drove most often, the one she liked taking to brunches and yoga classes. leased through my company, and returned the week she left. I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't the windfall she had imagined. She blinked rapidly, flipping back to the beginning of the stack, like she'd missed something. "This can't be everything," she finally said, not looking at me, but at her lawyer. Her attorney adjusted his glasses, his brow pinched, reading through the legal notations again, slower this time. "It appears to be correct. But the house," she said, her voice rising just slightly. "We live there. That's our house." My lawyer spoke gently but clearly. "Actually, it's owned by a private trust that predates your marriage. The deed is registered under Mr. Raines's father, and there is a clear paper trailing the arrangement. Has been consistent since acquisition. It was never jointly owned." Brittany's lawyer looked at her, then at me. "Did she contribute to the mortgage?" Is hook my head. "It's been paid off 4 years. My dad gifted it back. Then when I got promoted, Brittany never paid a cent." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "But I live there, I helped keep it up. That counts for something, right?" Her voice cracked, not out of emotion, but disbelief-like. She'd been promised something, and suddenly realized the fine print didn't aptly in her favor. My lawyer leaned forward, her tone calm. "There is value in contributions to a household, certainly. But there's no legal basis here for shared ownership. If she never made financial contributions, and her name was never on any documents." For a long moment, the room fell quiet. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sat there still, like I had the entire time. Let the silence say what words couldn't. Brittany's lawyer tried to pivot. "Of course, what about alimony?" Brittany left her career to support them. Marriage, my lawyer was ready. There's no evidence she was forced or even requested to stop working. Mr. Raines provided for her voluntarily while she took time off. That doesn't establish entitlement, especially with no children involved, no health complications, and no documented support agreement. I saw her flinch. Not big, just the smallest twitch of her jaw. I remembered that night how she'd stood in our bedroom, saying she gave up a career for me. How she'd pulled on her leggings like she was owed something. She was for choosing leisure over labor. But the truth is, you can't trade pretend sacrifices for real assets. Not when the myth doesn't lie. We wrapped up that first meeting and her silence followed, all the way to the elevator. She didn't even say goodbye. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Not suddenly, but like a slow leak in the hull of a ship. You don't notice the sinking right away, but eventually the water reaches your knees. I moved out of the house temporarily, stayed with my brother, while the proceedings finalized. I didn't want the energy, the memories, the echo of someone who used to hum in the shower while texting another man. It took her about 3 weeks to realize things weren't swinging her way. That's when the calls started, soft at first. "Hey, just checking in. Wanted to see how you're doing." I didn't answer then the texts. "I'm thinking about things, about us." Still nothing. A few days later, she tried a different approach. I was angry, confused. I didn't handle it right. "Can we maybe talk?" Once I didn't block her. I wanted her to keep trying, because for once, she was chasing something that wasn't there anymore. Eventually, she showed up at my brother's place. I came home from work, and there she was sitting on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, like the cold had finally gotten in. I stood at the steps, didn't sit beside her. "You're not answering," she said quietly, without looking at me. "I know." She swallowed, eyes red-rimmed. "I made a mistake." "Which one?" I asked, sleeping. "With someone else, lying about it for months. Or thinking you could burn down a marriage and walk away with half the ashes." She winced like the words hit harder than she expected. "You don't have to be cruel, I'm not," I said. "Simply, I'm being honest. That's something you didn't give me when it mattered." We stood in silence, the kind that says everything. Finally, she said it. "I thought you'd fight for me." That stopped me, not because it hurt, but because of how telling it was. "You wanted me to beg, no just something, anything." Is hooked my head. "Brittany, you were gone before I even knew there was a fight. You left emotionally long before you packed a bag." She looked up, then eyes searching. Mine. "I didn't love him. I believe that I said you loved how he made you feel. There's a difference." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I didn't expect you to be so cold," she whispered. I looked past her toe, the dim sky settling into dusk. "I'm not cold, I'm done." She didn't come back after that. Not in person, at least. But every now and then I'd get a message, a memory, a moment, a song, breadcrumbs of a version of herself she thought I missed, but he didn't miss her. I missed the version of her I thought existed. And once I let that go, I realized I hadn't lost anything worth holding on to. The divorce finalized quietly. The settlement was thin on her side. She kept her clothes, her personal savings, and a car I'd already paid off. That was it. No alimony, no stake in my assets, no house, no leverage. I resumed life at my own pace, moved back into the house, repainted the walls, got a dog, started running in the mornings again. It was strange how peaceful things became, how simple it all felt once the noise was gone. Sometimes people assume bitterness lingers after betrayal, that every morning you wake up with resentment burning in your chest. But not me. I wake up grateful because I dodged a lifetime with someone who could hide behind silence and lies, who could rehearse her exit while pretending to hold my hand. There's clarity in that kind of hurt. I didn't retaliate, didn't post online, didn't air dirty laundry, because you don't win by tearing someone else down. You win by walking away with your dignity intact and letting the truth be enough. She wanted a new life with someone who made her feel alive, someone with tattoos and calloused hands, who whispered sweet things in locker rooms. But that life, it's not built for the long haul. It fades with the excitement, with the attention, with the illusion of freedom that turns into regret. And me, I'm not looking back, because peace doesn't beg to be heard. It just quietly exists, and that's where I live now. In the kind of silence that doesn't hurt, in a home that no longer feels haunted, in a bed that no longer feels shared, in a life that, at last, feels mine. That's the real ending. Not rage, not revenge, just peace. And peace, after all that chaos, feels louder than anything she ever said. A year passed. The seasons rolled over without much ceremony, just quiet mornings, steady routines, and a peace I hadn't known I was missing until I finally had it. Funny how absence can be a gift when the thing you've lost wasn't love, but illusion. The text from Brittany faded. Eventually the last one came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The kind of day most people forget. It simply said, "I hope you're doing well." I didn't reply, note out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. She had become a closed chapter, a story that no longer lived in the present tense. I never heard from her again after that. Instead, life began to bloom in ways I didn't expect. It started with small things, cooking for myself again, really cooking, not just heating up whatever she used to order. I'd forgotten how much I loved the rhythm of a kitchen, the comfort of spices warming the air. I bought plants, not because I needed them, but because I wanted something green and alive in the house. Again, I saw old friends once I hadn't realized I distanced myself from. because of the constant navigating. Used to do around her moods, her schedule, her silence. It was like rediscovering myself in pieces. I wasn't healing from heartbreak, I was reintroducing myself to the person I used to be before I was made small to accommodate someone else's emptiness. Then a letter came, not a text, not an email, a real letter. It was from Brittany's sister, Megan. We were never close, but she'd always been polite. The letter was brief, written in neat cursive. She wanted me to know Brittany had broken up with the guy she left me for. Apparently things hadn't gone as planned. He wasn't who she thought he was. Megan wrote, "I think she's learning the hard way, that chasing excitement doesn't always lead to happiness." I didn't feel anything when I read it. Not satisfaction, not pity, just clarity. Brittany had built her world on attention. She needed it like air. And when the thrill wore off with a new guy, she looked around and found herself standing in the ruins of a life she thought she could rebuild on the fly. But that's the thing about burning bridges. You can't always cross back over them. I never responded to Megan either. It wasn't my place. Whatever Brittany was going through wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Months later, I ran into someone, unexpectedly. Emily we met years ago, long before Brittany batch. Then it was the wrong time. I was in a different headspace, chasing ambition, building a career. She'd been kind grounded, and I'd let her slip through the cracks while I tried to become someone. She was sitting alone, at a coffee shop. Oh, reading. She looked up when I walked in and smiled like no time had passed at all. "Hey stranger," we talked. For hours, not about the past, just life. Real stuff. Books, music. How quiet Sunday mornings are, underrated. She didn't ask about Brittany and I didn't bring it up. I learned she'd opened her own business, a boutique downtown. She loved it. You could see it in the way her eyes lit up when she spoke. We exchanged numbers, not in that awkward, maybe I will, maybe I won't way. It felt natural, easy. We started seeing each other slowly. No pressure, no declarations, just genuine connection. With Emily, everything felt intentional. Conversations had weight, not just noise. There was laughter, but also silence that didn't feel empty. She never asked about what I'd been through. She let me offer it up in pieces when I was ready. And when I did, she didn't judge. She just listened. That's something I didn't realize I'd been starved of. Someone who listens without needing to respond. One evening as we sat on my back porch watching the sky darken, I told her everything. Not out of pain, but because I wanted her to know. She nodded gently when I was done. Then she said, "You didn't deserve that, but maybe it led you here." And maybe it did. Sometimes the most painful chapters are the ones that open the doors we never knew we needed. I never saw Brittany again, though I heard she moved out of state. A fresh start, probably. I don't blame her. I hope she finds whatever she's been chasing. But me, I stopped chasing anything. I started choosing people who choose me back, choosing moments over memories, choosing peace over noise. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need the world to know what she did. I just needed to remember who I was before I let someone else's selfishness rewrite my worth. And now, on most mornings, I wake up to a quieter house, a warmer bed, and a version of myself I'm proud of. That's the real victory. Not moving on, but moving forward. Not finding someone new, but finding someone real. And most of all, realizing the person I became in the aftermath is stronger, softer, and far more whole than the man who once mistook loyalty for love. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the last light filtered through the window, I looked across the room at Emily, her head resting on my shoulder, laughter still lingering in the air from something simple and sweet. And in that moment, I knew the past no longer had a hold on me. I didn't just survive the heartbreak. I outgrew it. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Do you think forgiveness is possible after such a betrayal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more emotional and suspenseful stories.